So I'm Dan Joyce, the Vice President for Mission and Ministry here at St. Joseph's, and delighted for us to be here on this beautiful fall day. When we thought the temperature was going to go back into winter, we still have a taste of late spring, huh? How about that? A late, a revival of spring, maybe. So it's wonderful because there is, in my opinion, on this beautiful All Saints Day, there's just a lot of grace flowing, and I think on both in our campus and in our world, and it's a world that desperately needs a lot of love and grace right now. So we gather to recall those who've gone before us, those who've lived through equally and at times more difficult times than our own, and look to them for inspiration and strength, and we do that in a very special way today. We are especially delighted to welcome a reflection this afternoon from Sister Cora Marie Billings of the Religious Sisters of Mercy. And in many ways, Sister is one of the most inspiring leaders in the Catholic Church, in my opinion, for over 6 decades. Through her work as an educator at every level, her pastoral leadership of faith communities, her commitment to civil rights, Sister Cora Marie has irrevocably impacted the lives of thousands and laid a foundation for future generations to live in a more just world and a more culturally gifted church. We, in many ways, welcome Sister Cora Marie home, back here to Philadelphia. She grew up right here in West Philadelphia at what was St. Agatha Church. It's now St. Agatha and James. It's the ministry for the University of Pennsylvania. And having come from that community and then graduated from West Catholic, we also think of her as coming home as an honorary alumna of St. Joseph's University. She, along with the class of 2017, she received her honorary doctorate and acknowledgement of her incredible life's work here at St. Joseph's. And her other alma mater did that a few years after us, I think, down the street. We won't mention that, but I won't say that we did it first, but we did. And I think also some other schools have honored Sister with that kind of membership as part of their student body and their alumni. Sister Cora Marie, as I mentioned, joined the Institute of the Sisters of Mercy here in Marion, PA, again, one of our neighbors, in 1956. She has been a mentor to many as a teacher at every level, in primary school level. In fact, she taught at St. Barbara's School right here in our neighborhood. We are basically in St. Barbara's Parish. This is a chapel of St. Barbara's. And also ended up also teaching at West Catholic. In fact, she told me there's some of her former students are here from both St. Barbara's and West Catholic, which is wonderful. And she also has taught at every other level, all the way up to graduate theology courses. Her work as a campus minister at Virginia State University and also as an administrator in the Richmond Diocese is noted for the ways in which she mentored young adults and built up the church communities as a pastoral leader. Serving as the director of the Office of Black Catholics for the Diocese of Richmond and as pastoral coordinator for St. Elizabeth's Parish and Holy Rosary Parish in Richmond. Since the late 1960s, her work as an advocate for human rights has been especially noted and pronounced and recognized, especially through her ongoing and remarkable work in anti-racism and the processes of the conversations and really, in my opinion, the grace-filled work of us working toward a different future with regards to our own past history of racism. And then, of course, her work as a board member in any number of organizations, too many to list, and as also for some of the schools that she serves as advice on the board of in Virginia. She also served as the former deputy director for the Human Rights Council for the state of Virginia. Sister's going to tell more of her story, so I don't want to give it all away up here, but there's much, much more to talk about with Sister Cora Marie. As I've known her over the years, there's always more you're discovering. But she is very proud of the fact that she is one of the founding members of the National Black Sisters Conference, which I remember one year they met at the hotel right down the street from us here at St. Joseph's. And that is where she established that organization, which has really become a national voice and community that has really enhanced our understanding of ourselves as Catholics in the United States. in all kinds of incredible ways. It was through the National Black Sisters Conference, too, that she came to have a very special relationship with Sister Thea Bowman, who is one of, as you'll see the banners in our church, they have one of the 6 Americans that the National Black Congress is promoting their cause and movement toward an official canonization, recognize them as official saints of the Catholic Church. But here today, we're also celebrating all of these folks here in their work. And in fact, I think tomorrow, Villanova University will be hosting a symposium on Mother Lang, who's one of the candidates. So Sister will be there. Sister's busy. She comes in. She's got lots going on. So without any further ado, let me introduce to you, with great delight, welcoming her back here to St. Joseph's and back home, Sister Cora Marie Billings.
Good afternoon, everyone. Now that could be a little bit better. It's the afternoon. Or have you had a big lunch and are falling asleep? I had a professor in the seminary that said, fear the person with one book. Well, I have 6 up here, so no fears. I'm really honored and I'm really humbled, and you have given me a challenge to be here today because I'm able to talk about one of my friends, Sister Thea Bowman, and she's very special in my life, and she has meant a lot to me, and I'm at the same spot, I'm at the spot I am because of her. And one of the things that I would like to say is that she and I are very similar, and I think that that was one of the things that drew us to each other. She was an only child, and I'm an only child. Her grandparents were slaves. My great-grandfather was a slave. She lived in a poor part of the city, and I lived in what they used to call the bottom of Philadelphia. She was a musician, and many of the things in her life always started with music. And I don't consider myself a musician, but I do know music. And many times when I give talks or when I am preaching at liturgy, I will base the theme on music. And that's what she did. So it's just really good for me to do that. And I'm pleased because by Father Dan asking me to be here, it made me reflect on what Thea has meant in my life and what I have watched and heard from others of what she meant in their lives. I met Thea for the first time at the National Black Sisters Conference, which was in 1968 in Pittsburgh, and she was there. She also is a founding member of that organization. And we would meet every year. We used to meet almost a week. And I remember in 1968, August of around the 15th, there was always a week. But I remember going to the National Black Sisters Conference, flying to Pittsburgh for the first time, and being there with Black sisters that many of us had never seen before. And what the thing was is that Thea was the first and only African American sister to enter her community. And I was the first African American sister to enter any community in Philadelphia at the time. All the women, African American women before me, went to other communities. They were not permitted to enter a community in Philadelphia. And so living in a community of all people of white for African American was a challenge. And when you read Thea's story and stories of her life and the books about her, it's there, and you see the struggles that she went through. And I know that back in the 70s, one of the things that causes the struggle and also really makes, I think, sainthood there is the fact that what the sisters and what the women who enter religious life went through and what they stayed in doing is a cause for canonization. Because they lived a life because it was chosen, God chose them to live that life. And there are women that were able to stay in that life in spite of the difficulties and the challenges they might have had. And many times, Thea said it, and many times I say it, you can only live this life, you can only do what God wants you to do when you're a person of prayer and a person of faith. And that's what Thea was. And one of the things for me that makes me similar to her is that there are words about her. There's a book that is called In My Own Words. And this book has all the words of Thea. And one of her words and one of her phrases is, "I'll live until I die." And she said that in 1985 after the cancer had reoccurred. And she was in 1988. And I just told Father Dan, I've learned so much more about her just getting ready for today. But in 1988, she was a good friend of Dan Rooney. I forget which team, some of you will know it. Okay, good. The Steelers, Pittsburgh Steelers. I know Pittsburgh, okay. Dan Rooney was a friend of hers. And it was at the point when she could no longer walk. And she was still able, she was many presentations and places to be and minister. And she needed a wheelchair. And Dan got the wheelchair for her. And it was also, he did a thing, and it's in one of these books, but I'm not going to get it out. You can find it. But he said, that was when he said that any NFL team needed to admit people that needed other things, that the equity needed to be there, that you wouldn't deny something to a person just because they didn't have it, that you would have the equity to make it happen. But that in 1988 was when she also began, she could no longer walk, so she needed the wheelchair. And that's one of the things that I get from her, too, is that if God has let you live, and she said, I'll live until I die. So if God has let you live, and whatever gift you have, whatever thing that you can give of yourself, then that's what you do for God, because it's you giving back to God what you have given. And Thea did that all of her life. She was always giving back to God and God's people what she had. She never took it as something that was herself. It was something that she was given to give to others. And that's one of the things I think that has impressed many people about her. And it's one of the things that I try to live as being a person. She was 2 years older than me. And I have a thing about age. You always respect your elders. So even 2 years, I respected her. But that was one of the things she impressed upon me, that you give of yourself. And when she spoke to the bishops in 1989, that was one of the things she started out with. She said, when she spoke to Mike Wallace in 1989, she was on 60 Minutes. And I saw that at the time it was first shown. And I was watching it, and what she said to Mike Wallace as, she is giving of herself. And she told the bishops at their meeting in Seton Hall, she said to them, I bring my whole self. And that's why that's important, because some of us don't want to give. We think we don't have it, or we think that we are not capable, but we have the gift. God has given us the gift. And if I don't believe in myself, if I don't believe that I have and can do, and that God will give me the energy and what I need to do, then you're not really being a good child of God. And that was one of the things she always would say to people, I'm a child of God. The other thing she would say to people is that she's an old folks' child. And that's one of the other things for me, that I'm similar to her. She was an only child, but she had very much respect for the elders that she was put in the company of. And I remember that every Saturday, my mother and father would take me to my elders, to my grandparents' house, to my aunt and uncles. I had connected and connection with the elders of our family. And in the African American community, that's one of our cultures, to really be in touch with our family, to really be connected. And that's why sometimes people of white don't understand when we talk about our aunt and uncles or brothers and sisters, when we know that we're the only children. But it's because of our extended family and the connections and the relationships that we have with each other. And that was one thing that Thea had. She was connected to the elders. And when you read her book and read about her, you see that that was important to her. And one of her speeches and one of her words is she talks about the old folks' child. And the other thing about Thea is she was always laughing and always joyful. And in one of the books you read about her, she was reprimanded because she was so happy. But she would break out in song. She would start the meeting with the bishops. When she started, she broke out in song and sang because she was kind of asked about the church. And she said, and sang, sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Now, I can sing that too. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. And you go on. Now, I did that and I teased because when I was the pastoral coordinator, which in terms that you would understand, it meant I was the pastor of the parish. So I was the pastor of a parish for 14 years. And the choir in the church was really wonderful. But I would always tease and say, and when I would get up to preach, I would say, I'm not going to sing. I said, I have a song in my heart, but I'm not going to sing. And the choir would always clap because, they didn't want me to sing. But Thea would break out in song. And when you read about her, you find out that sometimes it was at the time that was it was at the depths of where she was in her spirituality. But she could break out in song because it wasn't about her. It wasn't about the cross and the crucifixion and the life that she had vowed to live. It was because of what God was for her and what God was doing for her and what God inspired her to do for others. The other thing that one of the words or one of the phrases that if you're around me at any length of time, you'll hear me talk about the true truth. That's one of my big things right now. So if you don't hear it and you're with me and you don't hear it, you ask me, how come? But anyway, the true truth is, Thea said that we needed to speak the true truth. And that's one thing for me that I'm trying to make sure that I get from her. Because it's difficult in our day and age to speak the true truth. Because it means you are saying the truth no matter what happens, no matter what repercussions are there, even if you have to die. The true truth must be spoken. And so Thea said that. So that's why, for me, I need to find out, and she gives me this grace and the courage, I need to find out what's at the bottom of things, that when I speak, I'm speaking the true truth. I don't care what other people are saying. If it's not the truth, then I'm not going to back it. I'm going to look and search for the true truth. And I think part of that is because Thea was a teacher and I was a teacher. I taught every grade from 1st to 12th. And then at one point I had the honor of teaching in the seminary part-time. I don't know if you knew that I taught at St. Charles Seminary for 3 years part-time. But the thing is, as a teacher, you make sure that you get you do your homework, and you don't come out and you don't say things until you know that it is the truth. So I'm always trying to find out what is the true truth. And sometimes I won't speak. If it's on something and I haven't done my homework or I don't believe in it, I'm not going to speak. But when I do speak, I'm speaking what I have found to be and what I believe is the true truth. So that's one of her words and one of her thoughts that I try to continue to say to other people, and also to make sure it really is a part of my life, so that I am really living the reality of what life is about. She had a lot of courage. When you're an only one or you're the first one, there's nothing ahead of you. So there's nothing you can base on. So when I entered the Sisters of Mercy, there was nothing I could base the life on, because there was nobody ahead of me in mercy that could help me out in some issues. That was Thea. Now, Thea was the only one in her community. I, thankfully, have had other African Americans to be in the Sisters of Mercy. So, but that's one of the things that some people could never understand. Unless you are the only one, you can't understand. Now, some people of white who go into situations of all black students, or they go into college, or they go into church, and it's only African Americans or black people. And words are important to me. That's another one of my things. Some of my friends laugh at me because I'll say, this is my thing. I let people know it's my thing. It might not be somebody else, but it's mine. And one of the things, language is important to me. So I tell people, I no longer talk about America. I talk about the United States, because that's what I can base my life on. I lived in the United States. I grew up in the United States. I lived in an integrated community. Now, I can say integrated because I did live in a community when it was probably maybe 50% people of white and also 50% people of color. And those terms might be new to you, but that also is one of the things that Thea was always interested in diversity and interested in universality and interested in everybody being and seeing themselves and the oneness of what we're supposed to be about. So in today's life and culture, many times you'll hear about people of color. So for me, the consistency is, if I'm going to talk about a person of color, then I also have to talk about a person of white. So when I'm saying some of the things that some of you might not have heard, that's where it's coming from. And as I go back to say, it's coming from me. It might not be coming from someone else. So there's just so much to talk about there. And one of the things I'm proud to say, it started in 1968 with the Black Sisters Conference, and the Black Sisters have they have associates. And my mother became an associate of the National Black Sisters Conference. So every year she would come to the meetings. And that is where, when she would come to the meetings, Thea would always go and sit with her. And Thea called my mom, Mom Billings. So that's one of the things that also is the thing that shows the friendship and the love. And then I'll end, because what time? Okay, it's almost time. One thing that I say, which also is the thing that is important, is that Thea called my mom, Mom Billings, and that was important to me. And, my mother, and she knew, and that affiliation. So I just feel that was another thing that made us close, because that's what she did. And I'm going to end with this story, because it does show one of the other greatest impacts that Thea had on me. And some of it goes back to the interview that Thea had with Mike Wallace. And he talked about the preaching and her singing and her evangelization. And you can get that on YouTube and hear it. But in it, Thea said she did what she had to do. And there's a hymn that we have, I do what the Spirit says do. And Thea did that. And many times in my life, that's the only way I do. I do what the Spirit says do. And so she did that, and Mike Wallace asked about her preaching and, the whole thing of women's ordination in the Roman Catholic Church. All those things were coming into it. But the last thing that I'll say that really shows another impact that Thea had on me is that in Richmond, Virginia, in the Diocese of Richmond, when I first went there, I was a campus minister. And I did that. And so it was in February, different campuses would invite me to come and do the preaching at the liturgies for the students during February. And so that became, something that I did a lot. So it's the 1990, it's the March of 1990. I was invited to do the preaching at the liturgies at JMU, James Madison University, the Saturday night, and then the 2 on Sunday. And so I was preparing. And for me, I prepare like time immemorial. Like for this, I prepared a lot. I cannot write down exact words, so I can't, my mind doesn't work that way. So I'm preparing and trying to get it, and it's like nothing's coming to me. Nothing is coming to me, and I have to do the preaching on the Saturday and Sunday. And the Monday before, I get a call from Eva Loomis, and she says that Thea's dying. And so I know, she's dying, and it affected me, and it was timing, but, I was doing what I was doing. So Thea died on that Friday. She died Friday, March the 30th, and I will never forget. So I got the call that she died, and I tell people, now I have no idea what I said. I don't know what I'm saying today. I have no idea what I said, but I tell people that March 31st and April 1st, when I did the preaching, it was the third Sunday of Lent, and it was the readings about Martha and Lazarus dying. I don't know what I said, but I tell people, and it's the truth, it is the best preaching that I have ever done in my life, but it's because of Thea. And she is still with me. We still are very close, and I still hear her songs, and a lot of times I still follow what she has done. So that's the last thing for me. But there's no coincidences with God. I really believe that, and more I find that out. And the latest one is that this morning at about 11:15, I'm on the second floor at the Mother House Marion, and I see Rose Martin, who I know. And Rose Martin rushes to her pocketbook to get out an envelope. And so now Rose Martin, I'm inviting Rose to come up and do whatever she wants to do with the letter, the envelope that she has.
Thank you, Cora Marie. When I was praying this morning, I thought All Saints' Day, I was coming to hear Cora Marie, but I wasn't sure. I think she's talking about the African American men and women who are up for sainthood. And I thought, maybe she's talking about Thea. I really had forgotten exactly the topic. So I was in South Florida, in the Miami area, for 11 years, and happened to be at a parish where the pastor went to Xavier University in the summertime, and he was taught by Sister Thea. So we got a grant to bring a number of schools together, and Sister Thea did 2 workshops for us, and she later did 2 revivals. So during that time, I got to know her and this shows how incredibly impressed I was. This is a form letter. However, there is personal note here, but it was mailed June 8th, 1988. Who hangs on to a letter for 35 years? Not many people, but I think it demonstrates her indomitable spirit. So I'd just like to read this form letter to you, and you'll learn more about Sister Thea in this letter. Greetings and love from springtime in Mississippi. Thank you for your cards, letters, calls, and visits. I apologize for the form letter, but I'm disastrously behind in correspondence. And this is the best way I know to express my appreciation and to bring you up to date on me. In March, after 9 weeks of R&R, radiation and recovery, I learned how to travel in a wheelchair for revivals, retreat days, or conferences in San Croix, Chicago, New Orleans, Madison, Bellewaerde, San Antonio, Pittsburgh, Springfield, Washington, and New York. May 2nd, I landed in the hospital again. I wonder why. Chest and back pain. The cancer had spread further in the bone. May 6th, I started a new course of chemotherapy administered intravenously for 48 hours 8 treatments altogether at 19-day intervals. If my blood chemistry is cooperative, I should be finished by October, but I couldn't get the treatment scheduled for May 27th because my white count was too low. The drugs I'm taking can have serious side effects, but I'm trying to pray and psych my body into positive response. Please pray for me. As a result of chemotherapy, I lost all my hair. Much of it fell out when I was in Boston, where I gave the graduation address and received an honorary degree at Regis College. Reverend Clarence Rivers says, "Bald is beautiful." Grooming is surely easier, one swipe with a damp washcloth and a touch of oil for sheen. Sometimes I wear a short wig or my usual African head tie. Sometimes I wear my bald head. As of June 15th, Sister Dorothy Ann Kundiger and I will be moving back to my old homestead. We're looking forward to returning to the old neighborhood. The convent where we lived used to house 14 sisters. It was made of reclaimed army barracks and has seen more than 40 years of Holy Child Jesus ministry, dedication, and history. She tells her new address and phone number. I plan to continue working for the Diocese of Jackson and also sharing the good news wherever I can. This year, I'm hoping to make retreat at St. Augustine Retreat Center, Bay St. Louis. Listen to this. Summer school at Xavier University, New Orleans. Workshops or conferences in Chicago, Terre Haute, New Orleans, Denver, Indianapolis, Oxford, Mississippi, Seattle, New York, Washington, Dubuque, St. Louis, Boston, Tanzania, San Diego, Toledo, Brooklyn, Tulsa, Pittsburgh, and Memphis. I'm sure she had them already booked when she wrote this letter. I hope I may be able to see you somewhere along the way. May God be with you until we meet again. And then she thanks me for including her on my list, and I was leaving the parish then, and some really lovely well wishes. And she says after that, love to Miss Daisy, Cookie, the children, my friends. Miss Daisy was an elder who was one of Sister Thea's great friends. So when I took this out this morning, I have held on to it because I think it's going to be a second-class relic someday. And but when I took it, I said to Cora Maria, "Oh, you are talking about Thea," and I just brought this along in case. And so she and I both thought it was great providence that I did that. So can I say like one more thing? I'll just say one more thing that would it relates to what Cora Marie said. Thea, when we were planning before I met her the first time, I was in communication with her because we had all these schools coming together for religious ed, and she was wonderful, but so demanding. This had to be perfect. This, what was I feeding people? Did I remember fresh fruit? Everything had to be perfect because people deserved it to be perfect. And we gathered we had a small church. It was a wonderful community in the Overtown section of Miami. And when we gathered for the first prayer, there were a lot of people gathered, and she began by singing, "Sometimes I Feel Like a Motherless Child." And people were moved to tears. I was moved to tears because I was so relieved that it was started. We were finally getting this workshop started. But it was the same. I mean, what an unbelievable woman. What an unbelievable woman. So thanks for the privilege of sharing this, Cora Marie.
Thank you, Sister Rose. Again, thanks to Sister Cora Marie for her sharing her reflection. She did say that she would, if anybody had a few questions, she'd be willing to take a few questions. Does anybody have anything they'd like to ask Sister Cora Marie? Please feel free. You want to say who you are?
Hi, Sister Ed Beck. Just want to ask you, one thing that's always fascinated me about Sister Thea is she was a sister of perpetual adoration. I wonder if that spirituality in any way is something the two of you talked about or could have an influence in your life. It's a very unique call.
I think I can't really answer that completely because I'm not knowing a lot about the Franciscan part of perpetual adoration, but I think basics of her life was based on the Franciscan part of it. That was very much a part of what she's about. And, you know, in her life and her bringing together, she was real big in creation things. She was animals, you know, people. That Franciscan part was very much a part of her. But I'm not sure about the spirituality. But there is about the perpetual adoration part. But one of these books, it does have about her spirituality. It, you know, tells a lot about it. Yeah, I think it's this one, The Shooting Star. I think that one gives a lot about her spirituality. Yeah, right.
You brought us to life and the life of Sister Thea Bowman here in this chapel, and very much on this All Saints Day, we feel, I think, very connected, as we know that you have been so connected to her. So I want to thank Sister Cora Marie again for being with us. We're just going to do it. So I would like, at this point, I would like to invite Dr. Janée Burkhalter, our Associate Provost, and Dean Ross Radish, who is our Vice President for Student Life, to come forward here to the podium. Thank you. And we're just going to share for a few moments our announcement.
Perfect. All right. Good afternoon. Today we honor those who have gone before us, celebrating their lives and seeking inspiration from their example and goodness. As St. Joseph's University looks into the future, we consider the time-honored values that have always grounded this Jesuit Catholic university. We know that as we move forward, we need to be creative, bold, and hope-filled. Dr. Cheryl McConnell, in her inaugural address just a few weeks ago, stated, "If we are open and creative, the ways we can animate our mission are endless. Let us be inspired by the spirit of our founders. We educate for the whole person, preparing students for the broad education necessary for the future we cannot possibly envision now." With the spirit of those who have gone before us and the education of the whole person in mind, we have begun preparation for the construction of a new first-year residence hall that will create the inspiring environment for the growth and development of our students.
So we're really excited about this project coming up. It's going to be right over here to my right, your left, at the corner of Cardinal and City Avenues, right at the peak of Hawk Hill. This new residence hall for first-year students will welcome more than 500 students in the fall of 2025. The exterior will reflect the traditional architecture of our very first campus buildings, similar to Villiger Hall, while respecting the serene landscape and trees as much as possible that currently surround our Welcome Center. This new home for our students will move us further in our commitment to the common care of our common home, the Earth, by using sustainable geothermal energy to heat and cool the building. By using this energy, we will be contributing back to the sustainability of our environment. This building will be framed in the McGuire-Wolfington Welcome Center, creating an archway, welcoming students to this area, a great green space for students to hang out and just be together, recreate, and enjoy student life here at St. Joseph's University. This will be an inspiring building that creates a future vision for our academic and student life at St. Joseph's. Such a forward-looking residence hall surely deserves the inspiration that we're here today to celebrate. And I know all students will be welcome there and make it their home. Thank you.
We want to thank Sister Cora Marie Billings for returning home to Philadelphia to be with us and to share with us the inspiration of her dear friend, Sister Thea Bowman, who has been a model for us here at St. Joseph's University and whose wholehearted commitment to intercultural understanding allowed her to be a champion of human dignity and civil rights. Sister Thea called forth the church and the world to be a place of justice, inclusion, and hope. Thank you, Sister Cora Marie, for reminding our students that they live with the inspiration and hope of those who have gone before us.
So, dear members of our St. Joseph's community, along with Dr. Burkhalter and Dean Radish, we declare our new residence hall on Hawk Hill will be named for Sister Thea Bowman, servant of God, saintly inspiration of justice, inclusion, and hope. All right. Thank you, Dr. Burkhalter and Dean Radish. And I want to again thank you, Sister Cora Marie, because you brought Sister Thea to life for us. You made us connected to her, and it is our hope and prayer that the generations of students who will live in this residence hall, named and honored for her, will feel that same connectivity, that they will be accompanied by her, they will be given strength, whether it's their struggles for health or their struggles for justice and dignity, that they will feel her presence while they are part and part of our community. So thank you for being with us, and everybody's invited to a light reception at the back of the chapel to get more wisdom from Sister Cora Marie and to share our celebration here today. Thank you for being with us.